Welcome to Show Sparks. With me today is Eric Lynn, CultureQs from Berlin, Germany. My name is Dawna Jones. We've been running Show Sparks now for a couple of years. It's really this here to exchange ideas, business innovation ideas, and particularly in this program, what we're doing is looking at a way to open dialogue inside companies so that they can shift. It's a much more logical, much more natural way to shift mindset and to shift engagement and connection inside companies. So Eric, I'm just going to head straight over to you, and let's just start right away with some kind of story on what does CultureQs do, and what's the experience with it?
What CultureQs does in a nutshell is it enables people to connect at a very deep, meaningful level and very, very quickly. That's the intention. That's what it does.
Okay, good. Do you have a story for us?
Well, in terms of how the idea for CultureQs arose, it arose out of a client-specific need back in 2002 while I was working as the integration consultant following an acquisition in the rail sector. And at the very first strategy meeting of the senior management team, there were 8 people from 5 countries. And while they all seemed to be getting along fairly well, one of them at dinner one evening came up with a question, and he said, "We have a challenge that we haven't really confronted yet." He said, "We need to find a way to accelerate the process of forming meaningful connections to enable us to focus more clearly on our work. And we need to do that immediately." And I kind of liked the question because it was the sort of challenge I've been working on for a number of years already without having been able to formulate a question as such. I mean, for me, it was an example of a very powerful question. It came out of a real need. And that's when I took it away and started playing with the idea, which eventually led to CultureQs, which was launched 13 years later.
Wow. Now, what was the incubation period about?
Testing ideas, getting feedback from clients, from anybody who I introduced it to, tested it with. I mean, couldn't tell you how many people there were, but we're talking about thousands of people, well over 1,000 people all around the world. It was just about improving, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work, how to adapt what didn't work, etc., etc. Yep.
Okay. What's your big why, Eric? Why do you, why have you, because everybody's got tools and techniques and everything else, but what behind that must sit a bigger purpose. Otherwise, we don't do what we do. What's yours?
It's about human connection. I believe in what I do. I mean, if we look at the way the world not only works now, but I don't think there is a significant change between now and, say, going back, 14 years now, to when I began working on CultureQs, and even going back 20, 25 years, which is when I started doing this work. We tend to look on the world, I think, far too mechanistically. Human beings are not machines. We can't engineer human beings, and I think we spend far too much effort trying to engineer people to behave in a particular way. It's not about that. We need to give people freedom to be themselves, and at the same time, we need to understand where we're coming from. So the question becomes, okay, how can we create a platform where I can be me, and you can be you, and everybody else can be themselves, and then go out and do what we're supposed to be focusing on together. Not only that, it's just a lot richer. It's a lot richer. The world is all about relationship, whether we're talking about the business or the social level. I only exist in relationship to you. On my own, what am I? That's nothing. And if we consider that we spend at least half of our waking lives in a working environment, if we assume we sleep approximately 8 hours a day, well, there's only 16 hours left. And in today's world, most people are spending 8 to 10 hours in a working environment. I mean, work is a social place. Shouldn't we enjoy it? Shouldn't we be trying to create something together? Shouldn't we
I
feel
think that's
at
the only
home?
way companies can do
Shouldn't
it.
we feel at home there? And let's not forget, from the organizational perspective, hey, what potential is there buried that could be benefiting the organization? So always round. I mean, that's for me the game. With a big why, I believe in it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now I ran across the other day. I was talking to a business student in a local university who I said, well, what are you studying now? And he said, well, we're still studying. We're studying. He couldn't remember the name of it, but it boiled down to storming, norming, forming, and performing the team process. What does CultureQs do to that traditional notion of how groups form and collaborate?
We bypass the storming.
Okay, and how and why? Tell us more.
The how, I'm not really sure if I can answer the why, because when I first began developing it, it wasn't the intention. It just, I realized this is what it did, and the groups who used it realized this is what it did. The how is very simple. By opening conversations around questions that really matter, the sort of questions that we don't normally ask, but we need to ask. You get this kind of aha effect when people realize, okay, it's not just about my perspective of the world, because everybody's right. So we're faced with a different challenge, which is a lot more complex. So how are we going to use all of this to actually create a new platform? And we're all at the same level, and there's no dispute. There are different perspectives and different views, but there's no dispute. Now, for me, that's far more, it's positive in itself, but it's actually far more generative, I think is the word I'd use.
Yeah,
which is where we're trying to go, which is where we're trying to go anyway. Yeah.
Right, correct. Yeah. The other thing, of course, that triggers that for me is that if you're connecting with people, you can have different viewpoints, and they don't end up being conflictual. It's a more of an open space for working out how differences contribute versus collide, which is the more typical response to different views. Let's take a look at what successful dialogue is, because again, dialogue is one of the tools. Appreciative inquiry is another one of those tools for opening things up, opening space up. CultureQs is a tool for opening space up and having the conversation. What makes successful dialogue?
What makes successful dialogue? A couple of things. First thing, and a prerequisite, is the space to be me, which everybody needs to feel. I can only be me. I can only be myself if I feel I can open up completely. So that's clearly in any kind of group situation, initially a facilitated situation, that's the role of the facilitator, to create that space, but we create it around the purpose, which is obviously the work purpose or the social purpose. I mean, that's the first thing. The second thing, and part of that, well, I wouldn't say it's the second thing, part of that space to be me is I know I'm going to be listened to. So I'm feeling appreciated. I'm feeling recognized. I feel as though, we're talking here in the work context, I feel as though I can add value. And then I'm likely to bring myself in. And that's part of the whole setup of CultureQs, in that, mentioned earlier, there's sort of three pillars that we have, which is foment dialogue, appreciative inquiry, and storytelling. I need to be able to tell my stories, but foment dialogue is about creating that space for you to emerge. I love the way that, David Bohn's short book on dialogue. And I love the way he says that the image it is of a river of meaning flowing around and through participants.
Lovely, lovely. Do you have any sample questions you can show us just to give us a better feel for what you're referring to with culture cues?
Sure. How about this one to start with?
Who do you trust and how do you trust? Okay. Now, do you give people time to reflect on this, or do they do this in group? What's the process?
People work in groups of 3 to 6. 6 is a maximum, so if we're working with a larger group, they're playing on multiple tables simultaneously. And for the question, I mean, they would have approximately 4 minutes to exchange around this question as a group. And the really important questions, I mean, following the initial session, which lasts about 1 hour, we go into a very intensive sense-making session. And the questions that are really meaningful to the group, they will emerge, the facilitator will notice those, and we'll go deeper into those questions, and more actually deeper, one level deeper into the meaning, actually during the sense-making phase. So the questions are triggers. The questions form connection. But it's not just about the question, it's about what we do with the question. And the real, I would say, solidity of the meat of the whole process comes in the sense-making phase.
Yeah, we always used to say in the work I did over the many years is that it's not, the learning comes in the debrief. It's you don't learn from experience, but you learn from reflecting on your experience. So that debrief portion is critical, absolutely critical to the integration. Any other questions you can share with us? What else have you got there?
Sure. Well, okay, I've got a couple of others which may or may not surprise you. I mean, I'll just show you here. There are 370 of them in there.
Oh, okay. Wow.
We won't worry about the 370.
Thank you.
But, here's one more.
Oh, here's, of course, decision making. Thank you. How do you make
decisions? For you, Dawna, what else? I've got to include this.
That was very thoughtful. How do you make decisions when working with others? Okay. So now, do you find that different groups interpret these questions in a different way? Is it, like what when you've observed the generative dialogue coming out of these questions, what do you see? Are there patterns? Is there a lot of synergy, or does it go through that somewhat of a process of exploration through to divergence to convergence, for instance?
It's always a process of exploration. It's not about convergence. That's something I think is very important to emphasize. That, let's say, take a simple case, you've got a group of 6 people. It's not about the 6 people converging around this question. How do you make decisions when working with others, for example? It's about opening up to the different possibilities so that later on, when they're going back to their business question, I mean, they've got to have a reason for doing this. And when they go back to the business question, the question becomes, okay, let's reflect on our perspectives. What kind of decision-making processes are we going to use in our team, in our project, in our business unit, whatever, what's appropriate? It's not about converting, it's about finding what's appropriate.
Right, good point.
And in terms of your question, do different groups go about it in different ways? Individuals go about it in different ways. It's like, it emerges. Have there been patterns? Maybe I haven't noticed them, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. So what's intriguing about what you're doing with them is you're asking these questions. There's a lot of skill in the facilitation side. I know that because I've been one, so for years, decades. So I totally get that. And then you're taking it and lateraling it over to a business problem. So there's the experience with going deep, reflection, and all of that, and then whoop, you shift it over and apply it to. So it's kind of stepping back so you can apply it more precisely in the business context. Is that a fair summation?
That's a fair summation. Yes. I mean, it's about. There are 2 or 3 sides to the facilitation in this process. The first one is to set up the context and intuition. issue the invitation so that people really feel invited and feel that it's really open. Then there's the whole process involving using the tool of CultureQs, which is, okay, the working around with the challenges of the questions, but then actually debriefing, making sense of what's really going on in the process. It's not just about debriefing the questions, it's about debriefing the whole process and what's going on with the people. And that's when it gets deep, and that's when it gets really juicy. And then following that, it's like opening up the space for them to take the responsibility to say, okay, this is our business, this is our work. What are we going to do with all of this? And what do we need to be aware of when we go out back into the real world, outside of the safe space in the room? And one thing I do appreciate is the feedback that comes from clients. You know, a week or two or a month or so after such a session, and they'll say, "Yeah, the quality of the conversation changes. We listen more to each other. We're slower.
Good.
We realize, there's the old adage of less is more, but actually slower can actually be faster." They're making that space for themselves, and that's something that is very nice to hear, obviously.
Yeah, no, that's lovely, lovely feedback, exactly. Now, you and I are both speaking at Spark the Change in Toronto, June 9th and 10th.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to that. And you're also running some training programs. You want to talk a little bit about what you're doing on the outside with certification for CultureQs?
Well, thanks for the question, Dawna. Obviously, I mean, having created CultureQs and having realized how it works, I don't want to keep it to myself. I'd like other people to be using it as well. So to enable that, we run a 2-day certification program that is very, very intensive, where the group gets the whole experience, and then we go into the how of absolutely everything, including different ways of using it, etc., etc. And the next one scheduled is actually immediately following the Spark the Change conference in Toronto. It's for the 13th and 14th of June, to be held either in Toronto or in Montreal. We're leaving that open. It's being organized by partners of ours. Yep, over there. And I would love to welcome open-minded, skilled facilitators to come and join us and come and join the CultureQs network, because the more people are using it, the more good we can do in the world, actually.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Any parting thoughts for the audience, Eric? Any particular tips you'd like to give anybody that's either a change agent or looking at how to work with change in a team or an organization?
There's a reason that CultureQs is called CultureQs. It's questions around this whole field of culture, which is a dynamic entity. I would love it if change agents, and especially those who prefer to use the label consultants, we are all consultants in one form or another, would go in and encourage clients to enter new situations and challenges with a question, as opposed to an answer that comes out of old experienced thoughts. We need questions.
Totally agree with you.
We need questions for you to emerge. And powerful questions are the only thing that ever brought about change.
Yeah.
You need to find that right question first, and then change will emerge.
And sometimes powerful questions don't look, I mean, they're innocent. They look very simple. They don't look like they're going to have much power until you put them out there, and all of a sudden the dialogue that pops out of it is pretty impressive. So, where do people go for more information?
Where people go for, can I just, before that, Dawna, just one question. The simple looking question is this one.
What does success mean for you?
I remember one occasion when I showed that to a CEO, and this was in an initial conversation. And it was a woman, and her answer was, "Oh shit, I've never thought about that question before." So that's just an example of what you said.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you all of a sudden surface the
we
awareness.
laughed, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, apologies there for breaking up your question. Where do people go for more information? They go for more information to the website CultureQs.com.
All right, and Eric,
And
you can if you go to.
can actually just all of my contact details. Sorry.
Yeah, if you can load that,
Yes,
I'll just.
Here we are. Yep.
Yay! Look at that. We practiced this. For those of you who are watching, this is always the tricky part. Well,
That was a tricky part of getting, opening the right windows.
Yeah, there we go.
I welcome any kind of inquiries from anybody, and questions, of course. I always welcome questions.
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, Eric, I want to thank you very much for being on the program today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Toronto, June 9th and 10th. Eric, what's the topic of your talk there?
The shaping workplace culture.
Lovely.
And
Okay,
I've got a supplementary question, which is, what do you want your workplace to be?
I'm sorry, what is it?
What do you want your workplace to be?
Oh, what do you want your workplace to be? Okay, that's a good question because some people don't.
It's going to be an extremely interactive session.
Excellent. All right, we'll see you there.
With CultureQs at the core and a lot of interactive work across the group. Yep.
Thank you. Head for to find out more information on Spark the Change Toronto. Go to just Google Spark the Change Toronto 2016, and you'll get the full program. There's a lovely eclectic mix of speakers. We've got most of what some of my European connections, and Jason Little has been behind the organization. He was going to be with us today, but got called away. So, but do take a look at the speaker platform. We've got Niels flagging from Germany / Sao Paulo / New York. And he wrote the book Organizing for Complexity. We've got a number of different folks from our European network, plus Canadian as well. So and the United States. So do join us. We'd love to see you there. Spark the Change Toronto 2016, June 9th and 10th. Thanks again, Eric, for being part of the program.
Thank you, Dawna. Look forward to meeting you again in Toronto. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.